Maya moved quietly through the dimly lit lounge, carrying a tray with 2 glasses of water. The place had just opened for the evening, and only a few early customers had arrived. Soft jazz music played from the speakers, while the real piano on stage sat untouched, waiting for the night's performer to arrive. The lounge always felt warm and familiar to her, a mixture of old wood, soft lights, and the scent of roasted coffee that blended with the faint aroma of perfume from guests who came dressed for weekend evenings. She wiped down tables with slow, careful movements. Maya had always been the kind of person who tried to stay unnoticed, not because she disliked others, but because she never felt she belonged in the spotlight. Working as a waitress kept her moving, kept her useful, and kept her away from too much attention. She preferred to observe rather than be observed. Yet every night, without fail, the moment her hands touched a chair or a glass or a plate, her mind drifted toward the piano. She didn't even have to look at it to feel the pull. The way the keys glimmered under the soft yellow lights made her chest tighten with a longing she never spoke about to anyone. It wasn't the kind of dream she felt confident sharing. It always seemed safer to keep it tucked away, like something fragile that might break if exposed. When she was younger, she had played for hours at the old upright piano in her grandmother's living room. Back then, she played without fear, without hesitation. Her grandmother would sit by the window, knitting or reading, and nod along to the music. It was the only place Maya had ever felt fully free. But life happened. People changed, circumstances shifted, and opportunities faded. Her grandmother passed away, the piano was sold, and music became something she practiced only when she could sneak time alone in the lounge. During quiet days, she never meant for anyone to hear her. She assumed no one would care, and the idea of someone judging her made her stomach twist. So she played only when the place was closed or nearly empty. But even then, she played softly, not daring to put her full weight or emotion into the keys in case someone happened to walk by. On some afternoons, when she arrived early for her shift, she would gently lift the piano lid and press a few keys, letting the soft notes drift around the empty room. She wasn't trying to practice for anything. She wasn't preparing for an audience. She simply needed to play like a person needs to breathe. It was her way of staying connected to a part of herself she felt slipping away. One afternoon, she didn't realize the manager had returned from a supply run early. She had been lost in a melody, playing one of her grandmother's favorite songs. Her fingers danced lightly, almost whispering across the keys. When she finished, she reached up to close the lid only to find the manager standing near the bar, frozen in surprise. She nearly jumped. He had smiled gently, not wanting to embarrass her. He didn't make a big deal of it, but his eyes told her he was impressed. "You play beautifully," he'd said simply. "You should play more often." She had forced out a small, shaky laugh and told him it was nothing, just a hobby. The conversation ended there, but the memory stayed with her, warming her and frightening her at the same time. It was the closest she had ever come to being heard. Now, as she finished wiping down tables and folded a clean cloth over her arm, Maya let herself hum, along with the jazz playing over the speakers. It helped her stay calm before the rush began. The lounge would soon fill with people, couples on dates, groups of friends, travelers looking for a cozy spot to relax. And of course, everyone would be here to enjoy the live piano show later in the evening. Tonight's performer was someone well known in the area, Elias Hart, a pianist who drew a crowd every time he visited. Maya respected him, admired the ease with which he played, the confidence he exuded. He was everything she wasn't. When he played, he filled the room effortlessly. When she played, she tried her best to disappear into the note's dot as more guests began to arrive. Maya slipped into her routine. She greeted them with a warm smile, guided them to their tables, and took orders with practiced efficiency. She didn't speak more than necessary, but her kindness showed in small gestures, refilling water without being asked, checking in softly, offering gentle suggestions when people seemed unsure. Many regulars liked her because she made them feel noticed without drawing too much attention to herself. A couple who visited often, an older pair who always shared a dessert and held hands across the table, always made it a point to sit in her section. Tonight was no different. They waved her over as soon as they settled in. "Good to see you again," the older woman said. "Will you be working all night?" Maya nodded with a soft smile. "Yes, like always." "You work so hard," the woman replied. "You remind me of someone who never takes a break." Maya smiled politely, though she felt a little shy under the compliment. "It's not too bad," she said gently. "I like it here." And she did. Despite the noise, the rush, the tired feet at the end of each shift, she liked being part of the place. The lounge had become her second home, the piano its beating heart, and she its quiet shadow. Around the room, the evening gathered momentum. Conversations blended into a soft murmur, the sound of glasses clinking mixed with laughter, and the warm lights made everything look calm despite the busyness. Maya moved from table to table, checking on guests and keeping her mind focused. But somewhere in her chest, her thoughts drifted back to music. As they always did, she wondered what it would feel like to play on the stage while people listened. Would her hands shake so much she couldn't control the notes? Would her voice crack if she had to introduce a song? Would she freeze in front of everyone? The thought alone made her heart race with nervousness. She shook her head lightly to push the idea away. Performing was not something she could ever imagine herself doing. It was a world she admired from afar, like a beautiful painting she wasn't meant to touch. Every now and then, as she served drinks or delivered plates, she caught glimpses of the piano on stage. It was polished, elegant, and waiting. Seeing it reminded her that Elias would arrive soon and fill the room with music that people came specifically to hear. She respected his talent deeply. She always tried to stay nearby during his performances, listening while pretending to clean or restock items. She didn't want to seem like she was standing there just to listen, even though that was exactly what she was doing. When she listened to him, she learned. She studied the way he used pauses, the way he let notes breathe, the way he held himself confidently. She admired it, but she didn't envy it. She never told herself she could do what he did. That kind of thinking felt too bold, too unrealistic. Instead, she simply appreciated the music and let it inspire her in private moments when no one was around Dot as she continued working. The manager approached her with a list of updated table assignments. He handed it to her and said, "We're expecting a full house tonight. Let me know if you need help." She nodded. "I'll be fine." He paused for a moment, studying her expression the way someone does when they want to say something but aren't sure how. Then he gave a small nod and walked away. Maya watched him go, wondering if he was remembering the day he had overheard her at the piano. She hoped he wasn't planning to bring it up again. She didn't want anyone drawing attention to it. Even with good intentions, by now, the lounge was nearly full. The warm buzz of conversation filled the air. People were settling in for the show, ordering drinks and appetizers. Soft anticipation rippled through the room. Maya could feel it too, a subtle shift in the atmosphere that always happened before a performance. It made the room feel alive in a different way. She delivered a tray of drinks to a group near the stage and resisted the urge to glance at the piano, up close. Instead, she returned to the counter, took a deep breath, and prepared herself for the rest of the night. She didn't know why she felt so restless. Maybe it was the crowd. Maybe it was the music she knew was coming. Maybe it was something else she couldn't quite name. For a moment, she imagined her grandmother sitting in the audience, smiling at her the way she used to when Maya played in the living room. She pushed the thought away before it grew too painful. She didn't let herself dwell on the past often. But on nights like this, when music felt close, memories surfaced without permission. Behind the counter, she polished a few glasses while waiting for the next round of orders. She hummed softly under her breath, a habit she picked up years ago without even realizing it. Sometimes customers noticed and complimented her voice, but she always shook her head, embarrassed as she worked. The door to the backstage area opened, and Elias stepped out. The room seemed to brighten immediately. Guests recognized him and whispered excitedly. He greeted a few fans, shook hands, and made his way toward the stage with effortless confidence. Maya watched from a distance, her expression soft. She admired people who could carry themselves like that, calm, collected, comfortable in front of a crowd. It was a skill she never imagined having. She turned back to her work, forcing her thoughts to quiet down. Her job was to serve, not to dream about things that felt out of reach. But deep down, no matter how much she tried to ignore it, the quiet longing still lived inside her. It stirred whenever she heard the piano, whenever she touched its keys, whenever she remembered the girl she used to be, the one who played without fear in the warm, busy low. The night had been moving smoothly until the moment everything shifted. Maya didn't notice it right away because she was busy delivering a tray of drinks to a group sitting near the corner. The guests were laughing, enjoying their evening, completely unaware that anything unusual was happening behind the scenes. To them, it was just another night at the lounge, warm lights, soft chatter, and the promise of a piano performance that made weekends feel special. Maya set the drinks down gently and offered the group a polite smile before stepping away. She didn't rush. She never did. She moved with calm, practiced steps, and she was already thinking about the next table to check on when she noticed the manager walking quickly toward the backstage door. His face looked tense, and his hands were fidgeting, which was unusual for him. He was normally steady, always trying to appear composed in front of customers. Something was wrong. Maya watched him disappear behind the door, and a small worry started to grow inside her. She didn't like surprises at work. The lounge ran on routine, and she depended on that routine to get through the night without feeling overwhelmed. Whenever something unexpected happened, she felt her chest tighten just a little. Still, she didn't go after him. It wasn't her place. Instead, she returned to the counter to refill a few water glasses. She tried to focus on her tasks, but she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up her spine. Minutes passed, and the backstage door remained closed. The lights above the stage glowed softly, ready for the show, though no one was seated at the piano yet. Guests were starting to talk about the upcoming performance, and Maya could hear bits of conversation floating through the room. Can't wait to hear him play tonight. He always brings such good energy. I heard he learned a new piece. All the excitement made the room feel full and lively, but for Maya, it only made the silence from the backstage area feel heavier. She was carrying a tray of empty glasses back to the counter when the door suddenly opened again. The manager stepped out, but now he wasn't alone. Elias walked beside him, and one look at the pianist made Maya freeze. He was in pain. Not dramatic, not loud, but something was clearly wrong. His jaw was tight, and his left hand was wrapped in a cloth. He held it close to his chest as if protecting it. The manager whispered something to him, and although Maya couldn't hear the words, she recognized the tone of worry. She didn't mean to stare, but she did. Just for a moment, Elias noticed her looking and gave a small, strained smile, trying to downplay the situation. That was enough to tell Maya things were worse than they seemed. The manager guided Elias back into the hallway behind the bar. away from the customer's view. Maya hesitated, unsure if she should keep working or check if the manager needed help. She stood by the counter, holding the tray to her chest like a shield, listening for clues. She didn't have to wait long. The manager returned a moment later, rubbing his forehead with both hands. When he saw her, he exhaled sharply. "Maya," he said softly, almost in a whisper meant only for her. "Tonight might become complicated." She set the tray down slowly. "Is he okay?" she asked, nodding toward the backstage area. The manager shook his head. "He hurt his hand. Badly. He said he slipped right before he came in. We're trying to see if he can still play, but it doesn't look good." Maya felt her heart sink. The lounge lived for nights like this, live performances, packed seats, happy customers. If the show didn't happen, the disappointment would spread through the room like cold air. "Is there something I can do?" Maya asked quietly. She didn't know what she expected him to say. She wasn't a doctor or a manager or anyone with the kind of authority to fix a crisis. But the words slipped out naturally, driven by a need to help. The manager looked at her, and for a moment, his expression softened. He seemed grateful for her calmness, even though she felt anything but calm inside. "Just keep doing what you're doing," he said. "I'll talk to the staff and figure out our options." Then he hurried off again, leaving Maya at the counter with a knot of worry tightening in her stomach. A night that had begun so smoothly now felt uncertain. She tried to focus on her tasks, but her mind kept wandering. She imagined the disappointed expressions on the customers' faces if the performance got canceled. She imagined the manager trying to explain the situation. She imagined people leaving early, feeling let down. It bothered her more than she expected. Even though she wasn't a performer, the music meant something to her. The piano wasn't just entertainment. It was part of the lounge's heartbeat. Without it, everything would feel different, quieter, a little emptier. Minutes ticked by. The murmur in the lounge grew louder as more guests settled in and glanced toward the stage, wondering when the show would start. Some looked impatient. Others checked the time. Maya continued moving from table to table, doing her best to keep the atmosphere smooth. But inside, she felt tense. Every time she passed the stage, she glanced at the piano, seeing it still untouched. The lid was open. The bench was waiting, but the silence around it felt heavier than usual. Finally, the manager returned to the main floor. He looked like someone carrying a secret he didn't want to reveal. Maya approached him cautiously, waiting for him to speak. "We might need to delay the performance," he whispered. She nodded slowly. "Do you want me to tell the customers?" He hesitated. "Not yet. Maybe give me a little more time." Then he paused, studying her face. She didn't know why, but his expression made her nervous. It was similar to the look he had given her the day he overheard her, playing the piano, thoughtful, almost searching. "What is it?" she asked softly. He shook his head at first, as if dismissing his own thoughts. "Nothing. Just, we'll figure something out." But his eyes told her there was more he wasn't saying. As the minutes stretched on, the uncertainty in the room grew. A few customers began asking when the performance would start. Maya answered as kindly as she could, saying the show would begin soon and thanking them for their patience. Most accepted her words politely, but she could feel the energy shifting. Some guests exchanged confused glances. Others whispered to each other. A few sighed loudly. Clearly annoyed, Maya felt the pressure increasing. She felt responsible, even though she knew she wasn't. She wished she could do something, anything, to ease the disappointment building in the room. She was refilling drinks when she heard the backstage door open again. Elias stepped out, this time moving a little slower. His injured hand was now wrapped more firmly, and his face showed clear discomfort. The manager walked beside him, talking quietly. Maya turned away before they noticed her looking again. But she couldn't avoid hearing the concern in the manager's voice. If it hurts that much, you shouldn't force it. Elias sighed heavily. I know. I hate letting people down. Maya closed her eyes for a second. She understood that feeling deeply. The manager guided him back inside, and for a moment, Maya stood completely still. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She didn't breathe. She just listened to the soft murmur of the room and the faint click of the door closing. Something inside her shifted, something small but noticeable. She didn't know why, but the thought of a canceled performance made her chest ache. Maybe it was because she had grown up with music. Maybe it was because the piano reminded her of someone she missed. Maybe it was because the lounge felt different when music filled it, almost like it was alive. Whatever the reason, she couldn't shake the feeling that something important was about to happen. The manager approached her once more, this time more quietly. He seemed hesitant, as if unsure how to begin. Maya, he said, lowering his voice, can I ask you something? Unusual? She blinked. Of course. He glanced toward the stage, then back at her. Just a question. No pressure. She nodded, though her heart suddenly started beating faster. If, he said slowly, we can't get the performance started tonight, would you be willing to play? Just for a little while. Just to keep the guests calm. The world seemed to stop. For a moment, the noise of the lounge faded. The lights softened. The clinking of glasses melted away. Everything around her blurred, leaving only the sound of her own heartbeat. She stared at him in disbelief. Me? I can't. I mean, I'm not a performer. His expression didn't change. He wasn't joking. He wasn't exaggerating. He genuinely meant it. I know you're not comfortable on stage, he said gently. But I've heard you play. You're better than you think. Maya shook her head quickly. I can't do that in front of all these people. They came here to hear him, not me. The manager sighed softly. I'm not asking you to replace him. Just to help keep things steady until we figure out what to do. 5 minutes. Maybe less. She looked around the room. Dozens of people talking and laughing, waiting for a show they didn't know might not happen. Her hands started to tremble. I don't know, she whispered. It's just an idea, he said gently. You don't have to decide now. He gave her a reassuring nod and walked away, leaving her standing alone by the counter. Her breath came unsteady. Her fingertips tingled. Her stomach twisted in knots. She had played the piano in this room before, but only in silence, with no audience, no eyes watching her, no expectations. The idea of stepping on stage felt unreal, overwhelming, impossible. But the idea had been spoken out loud. It existed now. And once spoken, it couldn't be taken back. All around her, the lounge buzzed with life, unaware of the storm building in. Maya felt the weight of the manager's question lingering inside her long after he walked away. It followed her through the lounge like a quiet shadow that refused to leave her side. Every time she tried to ignore it, the thought would circle back again, whispering at the edges of her mind. Would you be willing to play? Just for a little while. She kept repeating the words in her head as she moved between tables. She didn't understand how something so simple could make her entire world feel unsteady. She had always played only when the room was empty, when no one was listening, when she felt safe. The idea of playing in front of a crowd, a full crowd, felt overwhelming, but the room was getting restless. Guests looked toward the stage more often now. Some checked their phones, others asked politely about the delay, and a few were beginning to look frustrated. The manager was doing his best to calm them, but Maya could tell he was running out of time. Even the warm, friendly atmosphere of the lounge felt tense now. It didn't have the soft glow of a normal evening. Instead, a thin line of worry stretched across the room. People had come with expectations. People wanted a show, and she knew they would feel let down if they didn't get one. Maya carried a plate to a table near the back, but her hands shook slightly as she set it down. The customer didn't notice, but she felt it in her bones. She wasn't trembling because of the crowd or the noise. She was trembling because a small, stubborn part of her wondered if the manager was right. Maybe she could help. Maybe she could play, even if only for a moment, just to make the night feel less broken. But she also knew how badly fear could freeze her. She imagined walking onto that stage, sitting at the piano, and feeling every pair of eyes locked on her. She imagined her fingers stiffening, missing notes, or worse, being unable to play anything at all. The thought alone made her chest squeeze tight. She went behind the counter to collect a row of clean glasses and tried to steady her breathing. She focused on the simple rhythm of stacking and arranging, but that didn't help for long. The sounds around her felt louder than usual. The clinking of silverware, the rising chatter, the scraping of chairs as more people settled in. The tension inside her grew until she felt almost dizzy. Just then, one of her coworkers approached her, a younger server named Talia. She tilted her head toward Maya, noticing the strain in her face. "You okay?" Talia asked softly. Maya hesitated before giving a small nod. "I'm fine, just a long night." Talia sighed. Everyone's tense. The delay isn't helping. People are starting to ask questions. Maya swallowed hard. "Yeah, I can tell." Talia lowered her voice. "I heard what the manager asked you." Maya froze. He told you." "No," Talia said with a small smile. "I just overheard. I wasn't trying to. But is it true? You play?" Maya looked down at the glasses in front of her. "Not really, I mean." "Yes, but not in front of people." Talia nodded gently. "I get that. But honestly?" She leaned closer. "I think you're braver than you think." Maya almost laughed. "I don't feel brave at all." "You don't have to," Talia replied. "Being scared doesn't mean you can't do something." Her words were kind, soft, and surprisingly grounding. They didn't make the fear go away, but they made Maya feel less alone. After all, she wasn't facing the pressure by herself. The whole staff was feeling the weight of the delay. "Just think about it," Talia whispered before returning to her tables. Maya stood still for a moment, staring at the polished counter in front of her. Her reflection looked uncertain, almost lost. She didn't recognize the expression on her own face. She took a deep breath, then another. She forced herself to finish the tasks she needed to do. But no matter how much she tried to focus, her gaze drifted toward the piano again, and again. It sat there under the warm stage lights, quiet and patient, as if waiting for someone to bring it to life. And for the first time in her life, Maya wondered, not feared, not assumed, but wondered what it would feel like to sit there and play while people listened. She wasn't imagining applause or attention. She wasn't imagining being praised. She was imagining the moment her fingers touched the keys, the way the notes would rise gently into the room. She imagined filling the silence with something soft, something warm, something that might make people stop worrying for just a little while. The thought was scary, but something about it also felt right. Still, she shook the idea from her mind and returned to her work. She wasn't ready. Not yet. The backstage door opened again, and the manager walked toward her. She could tell by his expression that he didn't bring good news. His steps were heavy, and his shoulders slumped slightly, which meant Elias wasn't improving. "Maya," he said quietly, "can we talk for a second?" Her heart dropped. She stepped aside with him, away from the tables. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking uncomfortable. I'm sorry to ask you this again. I know it's a lot, but Elias really can't play. He's in pain just trying to move his fingers. And the guests, well, they're getting restless. Maya nodded slowly, waiting. I won't force you to do anything, he continued. But if you could just play one song, just one, it would help calm the room. It would show them we're doing our best. She closed her eyes. I'm scared. I know, he said gently. Anyone would be. But I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe in you. Her breath trembled. She didn't trust her voice enough to respond. You don't have to be perfect, he added softly. You just have to be brave for a moment. Maya looked up at him, and in that moment, something inside her cracked open. She felt a mix of fear, hope, doubt, and longing all at once. It felt like standing on the edge of something she didn't fully understand. She whispered, "Let me think." The manager nodded. "Take your time. I'll handle the crowd for a few more minutes." He walked away, leaving her alone again. But she didn't feel angry or pressured. She felt something else, something strange and fragile. Possibility. She turned toward the stage and studied it more closely. The piano looked bigger than before, almost intimidating. The bench seemed too far from where she stood, like she would need to cross a deep emotional distance just to reach it. Her hands were cold, and she rubbed them together to warm them. She didn't want to run from the idea anymore, not because she felt confident, but because she finally understood something important. If she didn't try now, she might never try at all. She took a small step forward, then stopped. Her heart beat faster. She took another step, then another. She wasn't walking toward the stage completely, just closer, enough to feel its presence more clearly. But before she could decide anything, Elias emerged from backstage and approached her. He looked tired but kind. His injured hand was wrapped neatly now. "Maya," he said softly. She stiffened. She hadn't expected him to talk to her directly. "I heard the manager asked if you could play," he said gently. Maya nodded, feeling embarrassed. "I'm not sure I can." Elias smiled, not with confidence, but with the warmth of someone who understood fear very well. "You know, the first time I played for a crowd, I thought I was going to faint. I forgot half the songs I practiced. My hands were shaking so badly, I hit wrong notes everywhere." Maya looked at him, surprised. "Really?" "Oh, yes," he said with a small laugh. "Everyone sees performers when they're confident and polished, but no one sees how terrified they are before they get there." She didn't know what to say. He continued, "I didn't become confident because I wasn't scared. I became confident because I learned to play even while being scared." His words settled deep inside her. Then he added gently, "And I heard you play once. You have something special. You don't have to be perfect tonight. You just have to be present." Maya felt tears sting her eyes, but she blinked them away. "I'm not asking you to take my place," Elias said softly. "I'm asking you to just help make tonight less disappointing for the people who came here." His voice was kind, steady, and honest. She took a slow breath. "I don't know if I can do it." "You won't know," he said, "until you try." He gave her a gentle nod and walked away, leaving her with a heart full of confusion and something close to courage. Maya stood still for a long moment. The noise of the room faded into the background. She felt her breaths grow deeper, steadier. She wasn't magically brave now, but something inside her was pushing forward a tiny, trembling voice that whispered, "Maybe this is your moment." She finally took a step toward the stage. Her feet felt heavy but determined. The lights from above reflected softly on the polished wood, and the piano keys looked brighter than ever. She reached the edge of the stage and looked out at the crowd. No one was paying attention to her yet. They were too busy talking, waiting, wondering. She placed her hand on the side of the stage, grounding herself. Then she climbed the small steps. Her legs shook. Her heart pounded. But she didn't turn back. She walked to the bench and sat down slowly. The piano felt warm under the lights. She rested her fingers gently on the keys, though she didn't press down yet. She closed her eyes. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory soft. Encouraging, full of love. Play like the music belongs to you. Maya opened her eyes again, and this time, she didn't pull her hands away. She pressed the first note, then another, and the room began to fall silent. Maya sat at the piano bench with her back straight, but her hands trembling. The soft lights above the stage warmed her shoulders, but her skin still felt cold. She could feel her heartbeat everywhere, in her chest, in her throat, even in her fingertips. The lounge, which had sounded so loud a moment ago, now felt strangely quiet. Conversations were still happening. Chairs still moved. Glasses still clinked. Yet everything around her felt distant, like she was sitting underwater, while the rest of the world floated above the surface. She pressed a single key, and a gentle note drifted out into the room. It wasn't loud. It wasn't bold. It was just a soft sound floating through the air. But it was enough to make people look. Not all at once, but gradually. One table quieted, then another. Heads turned, voices faded. The soft hum of the lounge began to settle. Maya didn't lift her eyes. She stared at the keys, afraid that if she looked at the crowd, she would freeze completely. Her throat tightened, but she kept her hands on the keys, letting the memory of her grandmother's living room guide her. She didn't think about the audience. She didn't think about the pressure. She thought only of the music, the simple melody she always played when she needed calm. Her fingers moved slowly at first, like they were testing the water. She played the notes gently, barely more than a whisper. The melody was smooth, warm, familiar, the kind of tune that carried comfort in every phrase. It reminded her of late afternoons with sunlight pouring through the windows, the smell of tea, and her grandmother humming softly while she played. As the melody unfolded, a hush spread through the lounge. People leaned back in their chairs, listening more closely. Some had confused expressions, others curious ones. They hadn't expected the waitress to step on stage, but now that she was there, the room began to shift around her. The tension eased, little by little. Maya didn't notice yet. She couldn't. She was too focused on making sure she didn't mess up. Her breaths were shallow, her shoulders tight. But her hands remembered what to do. They remembered the feeling of the keys, the rhythm of the melody, the softness of the notes. After a few minutes, something inside her loosened. The fear didn't disappear, but it softened. She felt the familiar warmth rising from the piano, resonating against her palms and fingertips. She took a deeper breath. Her hands began to move, more freely, like she was stepping into a memory she had lived 1,000 times. The soft melody grew a little richer as she added gentle harmonies. Still nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. Just warm, calm music that wrapped around the room like a soft blanket. She finally allowed herself to lift, her eyes just a little, not enough to see faces, but enough to see the crowd's shapes. People were still now, completely attentive. Their bodies relaxed, their expressions softened. The restless energy that had filled the room earlier had faded. The sight made her chest tighten again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was disbelief. She was actually doing it. She was playing. And they were listening. Somewhere near the back, the manager stood watching her, his expression a mix of relief and pride. He didn't move, afraid to break the moment. Talia stood beside him, smiling softly, almost in awe. Even Elias, sitting with his injured hand resting carefully in his lap, watched her with a warm, approving gaze. But Maya didn't dare look long. She kept her focus on the keys and let the music guide her. After she played the simple melody once, she let it repeat. But this time, something subtle shifted. Her shoulders relaxed, her breaths deepened, and her music began to grow. She didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't a planned change. It happened naturally, like her hands were remembering who she used to be, a girl who wasn't afraid to express herself when no one was watching. She added tiny flourishes, small touches of emotion, letting the melody rise and fall more gently. It still wasn't bold or loud, but it was honest. It was the sound of someone opening a door they thought had rusted shut. The crowd didn't speak. No one coughed or shuffled. People leaned in quietly, drawn into the softness of the moment. Some closed their eyes. Others rested their chins on their hands, letting the music fill the space inside them. Maya felt a slow warmth blooming inside her. Not confidence, not yet, but something close. She let the melody breathe, allowing small pauses, gentle waves of sound, tiny moments of silence that carried their own meaning. As she played, memories slipped into her mind. Her grandmother's voice encouraging her, the old wooden piano with chipped paint, the afternoon sun dancing across the floor. She felt the ache of missing her grandmother, but it wasn't a painful ache. It was tender, familiar, something she had learned to carry quietly. Her music softened even further, turning into something delicate and emotional. The notes floated into the room and settled deeply into the crowd. People didn't just hear the music, they felt it. When she reached the end of the melody for the third time, she hesitated. She could stop here. It would be enough. It would be safe. But something inside her whispered gently, "Not yet." So she continued. She shifted into a quiet improvisation, letting her fingers explore softly, gently, without fear. She didn't try to impress anyone. She didn't try to show off. She simply allowed herself to play what she felt. The result was a smooth, flowing collection of notes that blended seamlessly with the original melody. It was small. It was humble. But it was beautiful. As she played, her fear began to fade, not completely, but enough for her to breathe without shaking. Enough for her to open her heart just a little more. Enough for her to feel present, really present, for the first time all night. In the crowd, people exchanged surprised glances. A gentle awe spread among them, the kind that only appears when something honest reaches them unexpectedly. No one spoke, but their silence said everything. They weren't simply entertained, they were moved. When the improvisation came to a natural close, Maya shifted back to the original melody. She played it fully one last time, letting it settle like the soft ending of a story. Her hands slowed, her breath steadied, and the final notes drifted through the room. They hung in the air for a moment, delicate and fragile. Then she lifted her hands from the keys. Silence. Not the uncomfortable kind. Not the confused kind. A warm, full silence that wrapped around her like a gentle embrace. The room felt suspended in time. People looked at her with quiet amazement, as if they weren't sure what they had just witnessed. Even the lights seemed softer, as though they too were holding their breath. Then almost all at once, the applause began. It wasn't explosive at first. It started slowly, warmly, like people were savoring the moment before letting their hands come together. But the sound grew quickly. Claps echoed across the lounge. Chairs shifted as people stood. Some cheered softly. Others smiled with genuine gratitude. The room filled with appreciation, not loud, not wild, but heartfelt. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She stared down at her hands, unable to believe what was happening. Her chest tightened, but not from fear this time, from something sweeter, something she had never felt before. She looked up. People were looking at her, not with judgment or impatience, but with kindness, respect, even admiration. Faces that had been restless or frustrated earlier now glowed with warmth. Her eyes stung. She blinked quickly to keep the tears from falling. The manager clapped the hardest, his face glowing with pride. Talia beamed beside him. Elias, though still hurting, gave her a gentle nod of deep approval. Maya's hands trembled again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was from emotion, raw, overwhelming emotion she didn't have words for. She didn't stand. She didn't bow. She simply sat there, stunned, letting the applause wash over her like a soft wave. A few guests shouted kind things. That was beautiful. Thank you for playing. We needed that. She felt like she was floating, like the world around her had softened in a way she'd never experienced before. When the applause finally settled into a warm hum, she slowly rose from the bench. Her knees wobbled slightly, but she steadied herself. The room remained filled with soft smiles and shining eyes. She stepped off the stage, heart hammering in her chest, and quietly retreated toward the staff area. People watched her pass with gentle admiration, some giving small nods or smiles of encouragement. She didn't know where she was going. She just needed a moment alone. She slipped behind the counter, her breath shaking, her hands still tingling. She rested them on the surface to steady herself, closing her eyes. A moment later, she felt a gentle hand touch her shoulder. "Maya," a soft voice said. It was the manager. She opened her eyes, and he gave her a warm, grateful smile. "That," he said slowly, "was something none of us will ever forget." Her throat tightened, and she didn't trust herself to speak. "It wasn't just good," he added. "It was real." She blinked away the emotion rising inside her. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded, eyes softer than she had ever seen them. "No, thank you." Maya looked down at her hands once more. They were still trembling, but now they felt different, alive, powerful, capable. For the first time in years, she felt something she had buried deep inside begin to rise again. Hope, and she had no idea that this night, the night she thought would break her, was only the beginning. Maya barely slept that night. She lay awake in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, while the sound of her own heartbeat filled the silence. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the crowd standing, clapping, cheering. She heard the manager's voice, full of warmth she never expected, and she felt the lingering glow of something she wasn't used to being seen. She wasn't sure how she felt about it. Part of her was thrilled, almost floating. Another part was terrified. What if it had only gone well because people were in a good mood? What if she tried again and failed? What if she wasn't actually good and everyone had just been polite? Those thoughts spun through her mind until morning came. But even with all her doubts, something inside her felt different when she got dressed and headed to work. She didn't feel heavier, like she usually did after sleepless nights. Strangely, she felt lighter, almost like her steps carried a small hint of excitement. When she walked into the lounge, she expected whispers or stares or questions. Instead, the place was quiet. Staff moved around setting up for the day as if nothing unusual had happened. Her shoulders relaxed a little, relieved. Then the manager appeared from the back office, saw her, and his face lit up. "There she is," he said in a calm but proud voice. "How are you feeling?" She shrugged a little, unsure what to say. "I'm okay. You did something special last night," he said. "I hope you know that." Her cheeks warmed. She didn't know how to respond, so she simply nodded. He didn't push her to say more. He just gave a gentle smile before walking off to check the bar stock. Talia came next, sliding beside her with a grin that was impossible to miss. "I knew you had it in you," she whispered. "You didn't just play, you made the whole room breathe differently." Maya laughed a little, embarrassed. "Please don't make a big deal out of it." "But it was a big deal," Talia said, nudging her. "Also, people are already talking." A few guests asked about you this morning when they came by for early coffee. One even asked if you had a schedule. Maya blinked. For what? For playing, Talia said like it was obvious. Her stomach tightened. She wasn't ready for anything like that. She wasn't even sure she could go on stage again without her hands shaking uncontrollably. The thought made her palms sweat. Talia must have seen the panic in her eyes because her expression softened. Don't worry, no one's forcing anything. Just let yourself enjoy the moment, okay? Maya nodded slowly. The rest of the morning passed quietly. She wiped tables, stocked napkins, rolled silverware, things she could do without thinking. But today, her mind wasn't drifting toward the piano the way it usually did. Instead, it drifted toward the memory of being on stage. That feeling of everyone listening. That strange, warm silence before the applause had erupted. It didn't feel real. A few employees stopped her during the morning, each offering something kind. One said the performance helped him relax after a stressful day. Another said she had no idea Maya could play so beautifully. Maya thanked them all shyly, unable to accept their words fully, but still grateful. What she wasn't prepared for was what happened when the lounge opened. Early guests came in, ordering drinks or coffee, settling into booths. At first, everything seemed normal. But then a woman near the bar noticed Maya bringing menus to a table, and she smiled warmly. You played last night, right? Maya's heart skipped. You? Yes. It was beautiful, the woman said. I hope you play again sometime. Maya thanked her and hurried away before the heat in her face got too obvious. A short while later, an older couple approached her with similar comments. Then a young man. Then a small group of friends who said they had actually come back to hear her again, even though they didn't know if she'd be playing tonight. Each compliment made her nervous, but also strangely happy. Like someone knocking on the door of a room inside her she hadn't stepped into in years. During her break, she went into the quiet storage room and took a moment to breathe. It all felt overwhelming. She knew she couldn't hide from the obvious forever. People wanted to hear her again. And the manager, though gentle about it, clearly hoped she would play again too. But she wasn't sure she had the strength to repeat what she did the night before. What if it had been a one-time accident? While she sat there thinking, she heard soft footsteps. Elias stepped into the doorway, his wrapped hand held gently against his chest. Hey, he said with a small smile. You holding up? She nodded. Trying to. He leaned against a shelf. You know, I've planned shows for years. I've played dozens of times. I've seen a lot of talent come and go. What you did last night, it wasn't just talent. It was heart. People feel heart. They remember it. Maya looked down at her hands. I don't think I'm ready to play again. Why not? He asked gently. What if I mess up? Or get too nervous? Last night felt lucky. Like something I can't repeat. Elias shook his head softly. It wasn't luck. And messing up isn't the end of the world. Even pros make mistakes on stage. People don't remember mistakes as much as they remember honesty. She sighed, not convinced. Then Elias stepped closer, his voice softer. Let me tell you something. When I first started performing, I messed up a lot. One time I hit a wrong note so hard, it sounded like the piano was angry at me. He smiled. But the audience didn't care. They laughed with me. Because they saw I was human. That's fine for you, Maya said quietly. But I'm not a performer. You are now, he said without hesitation. The words made her freeze. Elias looked at her with calm certainty. You stepped on stage. You played from your heart. People listened. That's a performer. She didn't know how to reply. For a moment, they both stayed quiet. Then Elias said, If you ever want help, even though I can't play right now, I can still listen. I can still give you tips. You don't have to do any of this alone." His kindness made something loosen in her chest. She appreciated it more than she could say. Later that afternoon, while the lounge slowly filled, she found her gaze drifting to the piano again. It wasn't longing this time. It wasn't fear. It was something in between, like a quiet voice nudging her gently. As she worked, she overheard people whispering about last night's performance. Not in a forced way, but naturally, like people sharing a pleasant memory. Some even chose seats near the stage, just in case she might play again. Her heart beat faster every time she heard someone mention her, but she didn't approach the piano. She cleaned tables, took orders, brought drinks. She stayed busy, trying to avoid the decision she knew she was inching toward. As evening approached, the manager walked up to her with a thoughtful expression. "No pressure," he said. "But if you ever feel like playing again, just let me know. We won't announce anything. No spotlight. Just you, if and when you want to." His gentle tone removed the weight she'd been carrying all day. After he walked away, Maya stood for a long moment, staring at the piano. Her heartbeat was loud again. Her palms grew warm. But unlike the night before, the fear didn't take over. Instead, she felt something build inside her, courage, but soft and fragile. She took a deep breath. Not tonight. She wasn't ready. But she could feel the possibility taking shape. Later, when the crowd settled and the night grew calmer, she slipped backstage and sat at the piano for only a moment. She didn't play. She just touched the keys lightly, letting her fingers rest. The keys felt warm, almost welcoming. She smiled to herself, a small, shy smile. Maybe she wasn't ready tonight, but she was getting closer. She could feel it in her hands. She could feel it in her heart. Something was changing inside her. Slowly but surely. And this time, she wasn't running from it. She was letting it grow. The weekend crowd moved lazily through the mall, stopping for snacks, small shopping bags, and the occasional window display. Near the center of the building, where a small stage had been set up for live performances, people began to gather. Some came because they recognized the young pianist who played there every few weeks. Others simply followed the sound of music drifting through the wide, bright space. The pianist, a cheerful man named Adrian, had a habit of mixing humor with his performances. He loved to play, but he also loved to make people laugh. While performing, he often cracked jokes, teased the audience in harmless ways, and made the entire event feel warm and relaxed. That afternoon, he was especially energetic, chatting with the crowd between songs, telling little stories, and encouraging people to shout song requests. Just in front of the stage sat a quiet woman named Lena. She had come to the mall only to buy a notebook for work, but the sound of the piano had pulled her in. She stopped near the chairs, thinking she might listen for a few minutes before heading home. But something about the music kept her rooted in place. It wasn't just the tunes or Adrian's upbeat personality. It was the simple joy he seemed to have while playing. Lena did not stand out much. She dressed plainly, wore glasses, and kept her hair tied loosely behind her head. She wasn't the type to push forward or draw attention. She usually preferred to blend into the background, finding comfort in quiet corners and unnoticed spaces. Even now, as she listened, she sat with her hands folded neatly on her lap, careful not to draw any attention. After finishing a lively piece, Adrian pushed his stool back slightly and grinned at the crowd. "All right," he said, wiping his forehead jokingly. "I need a little break before my fingers fall off." The audience chuckled. He looked around, scanning the front rows. His gaze landed on Lena for just a moment, then on the people around her, then back to her. She sat straight, looking attentive, but not overly excited, which somehow made her stand out even more. "You look like you're really paying attention," he said, pointing toward Lena with a friendly smile. It took her a few seconds to realize he meant her. She glanced around, almost hoping someone else would respond. Double quotes, yes, you, he said with a light laugh. You've been sitting there so quietly that I think you might actually be plotting to steal my job. A few people nearby laughed. Lena felt her cheeks warm, but she managed a small, polite smile. Adrian continued, Tell you what, how about you come up here and try a few notes? Just for fun. The suggestion floated in the air for a moment. Some audience members clapped softly, encouragingly. Others leaned forward in curiosity. Lena blinked, unsure how to respond. Oh no, I'm fine here, she said quickly, her voice gentle but nervous. Come on, Adrian insisted playfully. I promise I won't make you play anything fancy. Just a few keys. You know, like testing a piano before buying it. The crowd laughed again. Adrian's tone was light-hearted, clearly joking more than expecting her to accept. He often invited people on stage as a way to tease the audience, but most would wave it off. He didn't truly expect anyone shy-looking to say yes, but something about the moment tugged at Lena. She wasn't entirely sure why. Maybe it was the warm way the audience looked at her. Maybe it was the gentle humor in Adrian's voice. Maybe it was the music itself, stirring something inside her that she had pushed away long ago. Her heart beat a little faster. She could easily say no again, and no one would question it. She could stay seated, quiet, comfortable. That was her usual choice. But for some reason, she felt a small pull, a strange nudge. She didn't fully understand. Adrian raised both his hands in a dramatic, pleading gesture. Please, just for a moment? I swear I'll keep it simple. The people around her clapped a bit louder this time. A few smiled at her with encouragement rather than pressure. It was friendly, supportive. Taking a breath, Lena stood. She did it before her mind even had time to argue with her. The small applause that followed surprised her. It wasn't loud or overwhelming. It was gentle, as if the crowd understood her hesitance and appreciated her courage. She walked toward the stage slowly, trying to ignore the fluttery feeling in her stomach. Adrian stepped aside and held out a hand to help her up the 2 small steps. She accepted it, careful not to trip. Once she reached the top, she could feel hundreds of eyes on her, even if it was only a few dozen. It felt like hundreds. All right, Adrian said in a playful announcer voice. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a brave volunteer. Let's give her a warm welcome. The crowd applauded again, and Lena tried to smile, though her hands felt cold. Adrian patted the bench lightly. Go ahead. Take a seat. She sat down slowly, almost mechanically. The piano keys stretched in front of her like a long row of fragile teeth, right under the mall's lights. Her heartbeat thudded loudly in her ears. Adrian leaned over her shoulder, still smiling. Don't worry. You can press any key you want. There's no wrong answer here. Just have fun with it. The words were meant to relax her, but instead, something tightened inside her chest memories she hadn't touched in years. The soft weight of old music books, the smell of polished wood, the steady rhythm of practice that had once filled her evenings. She tried to push the thoughts away. This wasn't the time for remembering. She just needed to tap a few keys, laugh it off, and return to her seat. The bench felt both familiar and strange. Her hands rested on her knees, hesitant to move closer to the keyboard. The soft murmur of the crowd washed over her quiet, expectant, patient. Whenever you're ready, Adrian said. She nodded, though she wasn't ready at all. She lifted her hands slowly, as if they were heavier than usual, and hovered them above the keys. Her fingers trembled slightly. She reminded herself she didn't have to play anything real. She could press 1 key, 2 keys, anything. That would be enough. From somewhere deep inside her memory, A tiny echo surfaced, a feeling more than a thought. A whisper of something she had buried for a long time. She didn't fully understand why it appeared now, here, in the middle of a public mall. But it filled her chest with an odd mixture of warmth and ache. She pressed a single key. A soft sound rang out. Simple, harmless. She exhaled slowly. The crowd watched. Adrian waited with an easy, patient smile. No pressure. No expectation. But Lena felt something shift inside her. Something small but unmistakable. It was like touching the surface of an old memory and finding it still alive beneath the dust. Her fingers rested lightly on the keys now, no longer trembling. The cold feeling in her hands began to fade, replaced by something else, something familiar. She didn't know what she was going to do next. She didn't plan it. It simply began forming in her mind, like a pattern she remembered without consciously recalling it. Adrian noticed a slight change in her posture. His smile dimmed slightly, not in disappointment, but in curiosity. He leaned back a little, sensing that something unexpected might be happening. Lena pressed another key, softer this time. Then a third. They weren't random. Not quite a melody, but close enough that Adrian raised an eyebrow. The audience leaned in, sensing the shift even if they couldn't explain it. Lena sat straighter. Her shoulders relaxed, and the tension in her jaw softened. The keys under her fingers no longer felt like strangers. They felt like something she used to know. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, a small moment, but long enough for the world around her to fade just slightly. In that tiny pause, the past brushed against her again. The quiet room where she used to practice. The sound of rain outside the window while she worked on difficult passages. The soft voice that once encouraged her, telling her she could be great. She took a long, slow breath. The audience went completely silent. Adrian's playful expression shifted into one of anticipation, though he didn't fully understand why. When Lena opened her eyes, they held a calm she didn't feel before. A calm that came from somewhere deep inside, deeper than fear, deeper than nervousness. She placed both hands gently on the keys, her fingers naturally finding positions she hadn't used in years. And then she paused again. A moment stretched between her and the piano was still. Quiet connection. No one yet knew what she was about to do. Not even Lena herself. But the air around her felt different now, like the soft quiet before a storm. The crowd waited. Adrian waited. Lena breathed in once more, steady and full. Her fingers were ready to move.